this is Rhea. Welcome to Little Stories for Tiny People. So I'm really excited because, hold on, let me just see what this email is about. Dear Rhea, don't panic, but we edited your story. Wait, what? We changed one of the characters just a smidge? We hope you love it. No. Okay, I am flipping through today's story. For those of you who are new to the show, welcome. That email was from the spiders who live in the uppermost corners of my recording studio. They email me from their tiny laptops, and apparently they made unauthorized changes to my story. Let me see if I can figure out what they did. Okay, I don't see any changes. What did you do? Unfortunately, I don't have time to go through this line by line. I have to get a move on. Well, they did say just a smidge, so it can't be too bad, right? Right? Let's hear it. It's called A Second Chance Ride on the Sleep Railroad. Take it away, Presley.
Remember, there are no pictures. You have to imagine the pictures in your mind. You can imagine them however you want. Okay, here we go.
When Lambden sat down next to an unfamiliar sheep in the rapidly filling school auditorium to see an educational assembly put on by Bert Sheepwillis, the legendary sheep survivalist known for having an encyclopedic knowledge of edible tubers and berries, he didn't think much of it. "Hello," Lambden said with a friendly nod. "Hi," said the sheep. Must be a new student, Lambden figured. But just a few minutes into Bert Sheepwillis's presentation, "The situation is this. You've fallen into an icy crevasse in the middle of Antarctica with nothing but the wool on your back and a utility knife. Step 1, shear yourself. Step 2, fashion a rope with your own wool.
Wow!
Step 3, Lambden had the sense of being stared at. He turned and saw that instead of focusing on Bert Sheepwillis's advice for escaping an icy crevasse, the unfamiliar sheep was focused on him. Lambden gave another friendly nod, sharper this time, and the unfamiliar sheep turned his eyes to the stage. Once you've successfully lassoed a passing sea lion. But soon enough, Lambden got that creeping feeling again and turned to see the sheep staring at him even more intently than before. Hello? Hi. I notice you keep looking at me. I don't go to school here, the sheep said. Okay. I'm not here to learn tricks from sheep Bert Willis. You mean Bert Sheepwillis? Yeah, that's what I meant. Lambden glanced around, but every other sheep was riveted by Bert Sheepwillis, who continued his dramatic show. Once you've hoisted yourself out of the crevasse, retrieve your hoof-made woolen rope. You'll need it in order to...
All right, who sent you?
Lambden said in a loud whisper. Some of the sheep seated around him turned to scowl.
Lambden, shh, we're getting to the good part.
Sorry, Lambden said, before turning back to the sheep beside him.
Who sent you?
Lambden whispered, quieter this time.
The sleep group.
Lambden had expected the sheep to say the sleep crew, which operated his beloved nightly sleep train. He was surprised to meet an employee from the sleep group, the company that operated an entirely different locomotive, the Sleep Railroad. Lambden had had little contact with the sleep group beyond letters and messages, but looking at this unfamiliar sheep, who was not exactly practiced at whatever he'd been hired to do. It made a sort of sense. Okay, well, the sleep railroad is fine, but I'm not planning on boarding it tonight. The sleep train is doing a special dinner. I'm all signed up. So, thanks, but no thanks. That was that. Lambden turned himself away from the sheep and back to the stage, where Bert Sheepwillis had moved on from telling to showing. He was in the process of shearing himself.
He's quick.
Lambden's mind wandered to the towering moose's message about that night's special event. Tonight only, a dreamy dinner on the sleep train. Join us for a 5-course meal featuring delectable dishes prepared by our team of expert culinary artists.
Look,
The sheep said, pulling Lambden back to the present.
I get it. The sleep railroad had its troubles. We went through a difficult chapter. I can understand you not wanting to risk it, given everything that took place.
Lambden peered at the sheep. Difficult chapter?
You didn't hear about that?
No.
Never mind that. For no reason whatsoever, tonight we're running a special, and we can offer you 50% off if you commit right now.
No thanks, Lambden said, thinking of the 5-course meal awaiting him.
But if you wait until after the phone call you're about to receive, letting you know the sleep train is down due to technical difficulties or some kind of infestation or something, the discount goes down to 25%.
Lambden stared at the sheep, then chuckled. You're kidding, right? I don't have a phone. How would I even get a call?
50% off right now, 25% off after the phone call. It's a great deal. 50% off a sleep railroad that has had absolutely no highly significant recent troubles. I mean, none truly worth mentioning.
The answer is no. Besides, there's no way for me to even receive a phone. Suddenly, a voice came over the intercom.
Students, may I have your attention, please?
Everyone in the auditorium was startled, except Bert Sheepwillis. He was constitutionally incapable of being startled.
Lambden sheep? Excuse me. Lambden sheep? Please report to the main office. Lambden sheep? Please report to the main office. There is a phone call for you, and it is urgent. That is all.
Lambden did not think he breathed for a full 10 seconds. He sat still, with each and every sheep seated around him turning to ogle, until it became more awkward to stay put than it would be to leave. When he stood to go, the unfamiliar sheep smiled and pressed a card into his hoof. 25% off Sleep Railroad official coupon.
Sorry, I did warn you. Lambden, come in.
Principal Hoofsmith welcomed Lambden into his office. Lambden had never been there before, and he noted it smelled like hoof shampoo. A telephone sat, blinking, on the principal's wooden desk.
You've a phone call. Whoever it is says it is extremely urgent. I do hope everything is okay.
Thank you.
I'd be happy to give you privacy,
Principal Hoofsmith said, squinting behind thick glasses. That would be great. The principal left, leaving Lambden alone with the telephone. Hello? He said, putting it to his ear.
Okay, that one's done. Oh, I told her. Oh no, I don't know if I can reach him.
Excuse me? Hello?
Oh, hi! Lyle T. Tortoise, I am so glad I reached you.
Lyle Tortoise? I'm not Lyle Tortoise. Lambden's heart lifted. The phone call wasn't for him at all. This Lyle T. Tortoise character was in for some extremely urgent news. but not him, not...
Lambden sheep. I'm so sorry. I have a huge contact list, and I got a little mixed up there.
Oh, hi.
So I'm Gail from the sleep crew.
Lambden's stomach dropped. He thought of the unfamiliar sheep's warning.
The sleep train is down due to technical difficulties or some kind of infestation.
Uh-huh.
And unfortunately,
No.
we've been hit with some major technical difficulties as well as a boll weevil infestation in all of our sleep vehicles, somehow. So they're all out of commission tonight due to the computer bugs and, well, the actual bugs. That's kind of funny. I didn't put that together until
So much talking. Too much talking. Lambden's mind wandered. No dreamy dinner. No 5-course meal. Gail from the sleep crew carried on for what seemed like whole minutes before finally saying,
Lambden, we love to offer you a 7% discount on your next ride as a thank you for being such a loyal customer. How does that sound?
That sounds bad, Gail. That sounds real bad, is what Lambden thought. Aloud, he said, That's fine. Thank you. Lambden hung up the phone.
Okay, bye.
Then, sitting in the principal's comfortable armchair, he hung his head, and his eyes settled on the coupon still in his hoof. 25% off. Huh. Back in class, the other sheep talked non-stop about the assembly.
Can you believe Bert Sheepwillis actually lassoed Ms. Brightwool?
He's a legend. Lambden chuckled along with them, but his mind was elsewhere. He couldn't stop thinking about how that sheep had known he would get a phone call from the sleep crew. And what was all that about the sleep railroad's difficult chapter? In grammar class, Ms. Sugarloom lectured on verb tenses.
Now, in the case of something that began in the past but continues to impact the present, we use the present perfect tense, such as, I have been weaving worsted wool on my loom since I was 3 days old. Which is actually true, children. My mother says I was weaving wool before I ate my first carrot.
Lambden struggled to keep his eyes open. I could just go to sleep in my own bed tonight, he thought, replaying this grammar lesson in my mind.
Ding, ding, ding. That's the bell, children. Oh, and by the way, tomorrow is your test on the subjunctive mood. And if I were you, I would get to bed early tonight. Sleep is essential for proper grammatical usage, children.
The walk home was uneventful. It was neither sunny nor cloudy, neither cold nor warm. Just a whitish gray sky, temperate air, and a mild breeze ruffling Lambden's wool. The rest of the day was uneventful too. Lambden finished his homework, played kickball outside with neighborhood friends, and had carrot stew with his family. It was all fine. But with every bite of his stew, he was reminded of the 5-course meal he would not get to have on the sleep train. Later, Lambden brushed his teeth for as long as possible. He was in no rush. He took his time buttoning his pajamas. Eventually, there was nothing to do but go to bed. Lambden clomped to his bed and peeled back his pillow, half expecting to find his sleep train button shimmering as usual, perhaps playing a pre-recorded message from the towering moose.
Good evening, serious sleepers. Please disregard the phone calls you may have received earlier today. Both types of bugs have been whisked away by our crack team of certified bug whisperers. The sleep train is back up to...
But none of that happened. The sleep train button was a dark, muted gray with a little sash thrown over it that said, "Closed for maintenance." Lambden pressed it. A hollow click. Nothing more. Next to the button was the sleep railroad knob, looking shinier than ever.
The sleep railroad had its troubles. We went through a difficult chapter.
No, Lambden said aloud. I can get to sleep on my own. I'll think about grammar. It'll be easy. Lambden flopped his pillow back in place and climbed into bed. His plan was going exceptionally well until the clock on his bedroom wall began ticking more loudly than usual. Then he heard a voice from beneath his pillow.
The sleep railroad is now boarding. Please make your way to the boarding area.
It was the moose, not the towering moose, her twin sister, the one who ran the sleep railroad. Lambden groaned, and tossed in his bed. Grammar. Think about grammar. Okay, present perfect tense. My night has been ruined. Thinking about grammar made Lambden think about Miss Sugarloom, which made him think of what she'd said after the bell rang.
If I were you, I would get to bed early tonight. Sleep is essential for proper grammatical usage,
Good evening.
children.
Step aboard, please. There you go. Hello.
Lambden sat up in bed. Who was he kidding? There was no way he'd get to bed early tonight.
Board now, please. Please board now.
Scowling, Lambden peeled back his pillow. He reached out and stopped short. Can't forget my coupon. He found it on his bedside table and slipped it into his pajama pocket. He turned the sleep railroad knob. A puff of sparkling powder came bursting upwards from Lambden's pillow. The world around him disappeared into a sparkly haze. It had been a while since Lambden accepted an invitation to the sleep railroad, and somehow he had completely forgotten about the water slide. He'd also forgotten about the hairdryers. Slightly disoriented, he staggered through a dark train tunnel, his pajamas now perfectly dry, and his wool embarrassingly poofy.
Hello, good evening. Step aboard, please. There you go.
He rounded a familiar corner and saw the railroad, modern, sleek, gleaming, parked up ahead. He smiled, seeing it, but then frowned when he noticed a sizable dent in its side. Lambden thought of the sheep sent by the sleep group.
We went through a difficult chapter.
Hello, good evening. Step aboard, please. There you go.
Lambden watched as a line of yawning animals steadily boarded the railroad. He glanced back down the dark tunnel. His bedroom seemed far away. He joined the line.
Hello, good evening. Step aboard.
Lambden
please.
shuffled up to the
There you
moose.
go.
He marveled, as usual, at the uncanny resemblance she bore to her twin sister.
Hello, good evening. Step aboard, please.
Excuse me? The moose looked startled to be addressed so directly.
Lambden, hello. How pleasant of you to join us.
I was wondering. The moose flinched. Apparently, wondering is not a good thing to do, Lambden noted. How did the Sleep Railroad get that big dent in its side?
Lambden. We at the Sleep Group prefer to focus on the tracks that lie ahead of us. Now then, will you be boarding, or will you be heading back to your bedroom?
The animals behind Lambden grew restless.
What's this guy doing? Hey, we're tired here, buddy.
I'm boarding, Lambden said, shrugging. What choice did he have? He fished his 25% off coupon from his pocket and passed it to the moose.
Your coupon has been applied. Step aboard, please.
Lambden felt better once he was in his seat. The interior of the railroad was just as he remembered it, and revealed no signs of past troubles. He was seated next to a miniature goat who flipped through a magazine entitled Sleeping Habits of Successful Koalas. "Hello," Lambden said with a nod. The goat withdrew his head from the magazine and regarded Lambden. He gave a sharp nod, then returned to reading. Many of the animals on the railroad were reading. There was a gopher seated nearby, his head in a book entitled Pricing Antique Lampshades 101. There was a rabbit across the aisle, perusing an article about candle making. I don't need to study anything boring, Lambden thought. If I'm called up to give a boring speech, I can always just talk about woolen crafts. He glanced out the window. The railroad had traveled out of the tunnel, and the moon shone brightly in the night sky. Lambden could see rolling hills and pine trees.
Hello.
Lambden turned to see a cheerful spider on the seat next to him. The spider was wearing bright green knee socks on her feet and a jaunty cap on her head. Oh, hi. Seeing how friendly this spider appeared, Lambden had an idea. Hey, do you know anything about the Sleep Railroad's recent troubles?
Recent troubles?
Maybe one that resulted in an enormous dent in the side of the railroad?
Oh, that was rhinoceroses. Rhinoceri? Anyway, it was the rhinos.
The rhinos.
There was a stampede
But the spider was interrupted by a tall giraffe appearing in the aisle.
Socks, neck pillows.
Lambden declined, as usual. Neither socks nor neck pillows were a good substitute for a weighted blanket. The spider chose the socks and scurried inside one of them, more than big enough to serve as a sleeping bag. She smiled up at Lambden. So these rhinos, they caused that dent?
It was a difficult chapter.
Uh-huh.
Hello, passengers.
The moose's voice came over the loudspeakers.
We have used our lottery system to select the first speaker of the evening. Will Juniper B. Spider please approach the lectern and begin?
Oh,
The spider exclaimed.
that's me. Wish me luck.
Oh, okay. Good luck. Juniper rappelled down from her seat with the help of her thread, then skittered down the aisle to the lectern. Lambden watched as the moose struggled to lower the microphone to accommodate her. Eventually, she placed Juniper directly on the microphone itself, then nodded and took a seat to the side.
Good evening. Tonight, I will discuss important considerations when selecting a website.
There were some murmurings throughout the cabin.
I don't know anything about this topic. It might be too interesting.
If you ask me, the most important, most influential, most central concern when selecting a website is getting a lot of traffic. You really, definitely want and need to get as much traffic to your website as you possibly can.
Upon hearing all the unnecessary words Juniper was using, the passengers relaxed into their seats.
For example, an old tree is a great website. An old tree usually has many insects, including flies, gnats, mosquitoes, beetles, flies. Oh, I already said that. If you choose an old tree as the site for your web, you'll get so much traffic you won't even know what to do with it. Okay, next you need really good...
The passengers started closing their eyes. Lambden was no exception. So many extra words.
Web design, okay? Web design is very important. Another thing you'll want is...
There came a small chime, and Juniper Bee Spider did a tiny curtsy, then swung to the floor on her thread.
Guess we have again used our lottery system to select a speaker. Will Arthur S. Weasel please approach the lectern and begin?
Lambden paid no attention as the slim weasel slunk down the aisle. He was suddenly very tired. All the anticipation he'd felt that morning, followed by the disappointment of learning the sleep train was down, everything seemed to be catching up with him.
Tonight my speech is sure to bore. I'll be discussing chairs, tables, and more. Furniture of all kinds, seats and benches, shelves galore. So listen up, friends, to what is in store.
All over the place, passengers began popping their heads up from their neck pillows to get a look at this untalented poet.
My favorite piece of furniture is the humble stool. Who would not like it? Only a fool. The stool allows one to reach items high above. Truly, what about a stool is not to love? Wait, that sounds wrong. What's not to love about a stool? Oh, now that doesn't rhyme.
Lambden watched as the moose rose from her seat, her face etched with irritation.
Ahem!
The moose pointed a hoof at the list of speech rules posted on the wall. Midway down the list, it read, "Absolutely no rhyming permitted." The weasel's eyes went wide. Then a smile crept onto his face.
No rhyming? That's no fun. Good night, folks. Farewell. Looks like I'm done. Ding!
The moose shooed the weasel down from the lectern. The passengers shifted in their seats, whispering and giggling.
Ahem! We have selected our final speaker for the evening. I do ask that all speakers adhere to the important speech rules in order to optimize the experiences of all passengers on the Sleep Railroad. And I will remind our passengers that we do not engage in applause for any speakers during the ride. Now then, will Eliza F. Mole please make her way to the lectern? Eliza F. Mole, please approach the lectern.
A small mole appeared in the aisle. She wore enormous glasses and ambled up to the lectern with the aid of a tiny wooden cane.
Grammar. I love grammar, and that is what I will discuss tonight.
Immediately, half the passengers began to snore. Lambden nestled in his seat, imagining being wrapped in his usual blanket, smiled. So he'd get to go to sleep thinking of grammar after all.
When I told my mother I was boarding the Sleep Railroad this evening, she suggested that I discuss flossing techniques. Instead, I am discussing a grammatical concept called the subjunctive mood. This is actually a funny joke because that I discuss flossing techniques is an example of the subjunctive mood. If I were not such a grammar enthusiast, I would not even know that. That was another example, right there.
The passengers murmured quietly, pleased with this choice of topic. Yawns went up all over the place. Lambden was both sleepy and delighted. He remembered then what Ms. Sugarloom had said at the end of class.
Tomorrow is your test on the subjunctive mood.
Subjunctive mood? What are the chances? Lambden thought as he closed his eyes.
Here are some more examples for your listening pleasure. If I were queen for a day, I would order my sister to stop humming. Should the moon ever wink at me, I would wink back without hesitation.
A hush fell over the whole cabin, and the passengers fell asleep, one by one. Lambden's mind went hazy as he listened to the tiny mole at the microphone.
And if I were asleep right now, I would dream of grammatically correct sentences.
That was it. That was the limit. Lambden's mind quieted.
All bugs have been banished from the sleep train. I repeat, all bugs, both digital and terrestrial, have been ousted from the sleep train and associated sleep vehicles, thanks to our ever-vigilant security team.
Lambden rubbed his eyes and slowly sat up in bed.
Our entire fleet of vehicles will be fully operational this evening, and we do look forward to welcoming you, our dear serious sleeper, aboard. We ask that you leave all electronics and insects at home.
Lambden smiled at the message emanating from beneath his pillow. He pulled it back to reveal the sleep train button, positively gleaming in the morning light of his bedroom. Yes, he leapt out of bed and headed downstairs. He was ready for whatever the day might bring, and extra ready for his grammar test on the subjunctive mood. I know what they changed. I know what you changed. You changed a caterpillar into a spider. Her speech was supposed to be about selecting a site for her chrysalis, not a website. But I have to admit, even though it is totally not okay to just edit my stories without asking, the Studio Spiders version was better. Okay, I said it. It was kind of funny. Kind of. Just please from now on submit your proposed edits via email, and I will review them. See what I have to deal with, but I'm happy to do it, so that I can keep sharing stories with all of you. Little Stories for Tiny People is written, performed, and produced by me, Rhea Pector. My in-house tech director, Peter Kay, runs my website and puts my stories in the internet for all of you to enjoy. Thank you to PRESLEY for the super important reminder message at the beginning. And thank you to the many premium subscribers who supplied sound effects used in this story. Thank you to Theo, Annabelle, Jules, Max, Autumn, Lila, William, Lincoln, Nixon, Thomas, Nova, Lenny, Holden, Sage, David, James, Sam, Luna, Amelia, and Tallulah. And thank you, as always, for listening in.